Hello. Hi everyone. Good morning. So guys, as part of the today's session, I'm gonna give you a brief overview on a Cucumber BDD. So guys, if you have an experience on Selenium, if you have already worked on a Cucumber BDD, kindly skip this particular lecture. So this is for the people who don't have any idea on a Cucumber, to just give them a context what exactly the Cucumber is and what are all the keywords that we are using inside the Cucumber. We are just explaining this particular chunk. Okay, so Cucumber BDD, so which is a behavior driven development. Okay, so as part of this Cucumber BDD, what we are doing means whatever the automation test cases are there, we are converting those test cases into the plain English language. That's what I'm just giving you a brief context basically. So those test cases would be converted into a plain English language. Anyone just by looking into the test case, they can easily understand that. But in the back end, what exactly this Cucumber BDD is gonna use is it's gonna use a jerkin language. Okay, it's gonna use a jerkin language which have a bunch of keywords. You need to write down those keywords, then only your Cucumber BDD will recognize. So, if you consider moving further, the Karate framework code, whatever we are going to create, everything is based out of a Cucumber BDD jerkin languages itself. That's the reason here we are just explaining about what are all those keywords that we are going to use in Cucumber BDD, so that you will be having a clear idea what exactly we are going to do. In the jerkin language, we are gonna use a dot feature file for everything, right? If at all you want to create a feature file, you will be writing down that particular feature file. Okay, whenever you are creating a file, at the end for a feature file you need to give an extension as a dot feature. Within the feature file, you will be having a feature, and below that you will be having a multiple scenarios or a scenario outlines. First of all, what exactly the feature is? Inside a feature file, you will start with a keyword as a feature. So what exactly the feature is? The title of that particular feature file, or the short description about the functionality that you are dealing under the test. So consider that, let me take a small example. So I have already created a feature file. So from an API testing perspective, let me give you a simple example. So feature, what it's gonna be? Verifying. Okay, verifying Google APIs. Just I'm giving you a small example. Verifying the Google APIs. Scenario. Okay, scenario. What exactly the scenario means? First of all, this is the feature that I have explained, high level functionality, and what exactly the scenario will tells you is a detailed functionality under test. Okay, a scenario, within a scenario we will specify what exactly the detailed functionality under the test is. So here, verify getting getting user information. Okay, this is what the scenario that we are dealing, this is what the test that you are performing. That's the reason I have given it as a scenario. Ideally, whenever you are testing anything, there are certain preconditions for a particular test, there are some actions that we need to perform, and there are some validations that you need to perform. That's the reason in Cucumber BDD, within a given, you will be specifying the precondition. In the when, you will be specifying the actions, and in the then you will be doing a validation. Okay, given, when, then. And is precisely used for an additional actions. So if at all there are some additional actions are there, I will be using this particular and, guys. Okay, fine. Fine. So let us see furthermore on this particular one. Okay. So I'm just creating a sample scenario, right? As per the given, it's a precondition. Just one thing, given it's a precondition, when it's gonna be an user action, and then a validation part that we are gonna use. Within a feature, there will be multiple scenarios like this. It's mandatory to have a one scenario, and on top of it, you can add any number of scenarios to your feature file. Okay, you can add any number of scenarios to your feature file. So here, in order to test this particular API assertions or API getting of a data, the precondition is, okay, interact or open the URL. Okay, open the API URL, establish a connection with the API URL. When Okay, what is the method? Okay, API method we are gonna use here. Okay, API method we are gonna use get, put, post. Okay, get, put, post, delete, patch, any of these particular methods. The application URI would be specified as part of this particular given, and in the when you need to specify that particular method, and in the then you will be verifying the status code. Okay, so in general, right, from an API perspective, whenever you are done with the hitting of that particular API, you will be verifying with respect to that API code, right? So what exactly the API code that you are gonna verify would also be specified here at the last. Okay, would also be specified here at this one. So if you consider any APIs, an example of that particular scenario is in the given you will be specifying the URL, and in the when you will be specifying what is our API method, and in the then you will be specifying your status code that you need to validate. This is the way how exactly we can create a scenario. And like this, within a feature file, I can add any number of scenarios as per my project need. Okay, I can add any number of scenarios as per my project need within a feature file, guys. Okay, perfectly all right. I hope I'm clear up to so far. Then the next point, what I'm doing right now here is okay. So if you go back to these documentation steps ahead, now I understood about what is a dot feature and what exactly the feature that I'm going to define. What is a scenario? I understood. Then what is a scenario outline? Basically, in the scenario, whatever the functionality you are testing, the same functionality you are going to test within a scenario outline also. The difference is if you want to test a particular scenario with multiple sets of data, I have a one entry of data, I have a two sets of data, consider that you want to perform a post operation where you want to verify the post with the two entries basically. So in the scenario outline you will be passing down, okay, in the scenario outline you will be passing the two examples or two sets of data. So what it will happen is the entire set of scenario will be executed using a one data set, and the second data set it will be executed. For suppose in a scenario outline, if you have a given 10 different sets of a data, the same logic would be executed on a different set of data for 10 different times. Okay, that's what the objective of this scenario outline is. Okay, and as said a few minutes before, within a feature file, okay, you can have a multiple scenarios or a scenario outlines. Consider that there are five scenarios that you have added in a feature file, and for all those five things the precondition is one and the same, which is accessing that particular URL. So there is a small keyword that we have in a Cucumber, which is a background, using which if there are multiple scenarios within a feature file have a same prerequisites, then I can use this particular background on the top of that particular feature, and I can remove all those givens from the individual scenarios. Okay, perfect. Let me show you a practical example of this so that you can better understand this scenarios whatever I have explained. So what I'm doing means I'm just opening my Eclipse editor, where in which I will try to create a feature file for which I will be giving a feature scenario outline, and I will show you how this is gonna work. Okay, so let me close this context. So here I have my karate latest code. Okay, and within this particular one I already created a feature file. Okay, let me create a new feature file here. Right click on your desired package, new file, example dot feature. While creating a file, if at all you want to create a feature file, it's mandatory for you to have a dot feature extension. And another thing, guys, before working on these feature files, we have already explained how exactly to install the Cucumber BDD plugin to your Eclipse editor in the previous session. Try to download that BDD plugin, which is a natural plugin to your editor, so that this representation will be displayed for you. As and when I created a feature file, this is how it displayed. There are a bunch of comments are there. Let me delete all those comments. Okay, feature. So what exactly the feature that you want to give? And here if you see, this is a one scenario and this is an another scenario, and for every scenario these are the tags. Basically I can give a unique name to my scenario in the form of a tag, and this tag I can give it in my runner class so that my runner can identify the unique scenario and I can execute it. For suppose I have automated around 20 APIs with 20 different scenarios. For everything, I will give it as a unique test case ID. Along with that, I will give a tag as at the rate regression. As and when you want to execute all the regression test cases, right? Just with these tag names specifying in your runner class, as all your scenarios are having this particular tag, when you run it right with a single tag, all the 20 scenarios would be executed one after another. And if you see this scenario outline here, guys, this scenario outline is having examples. The data set what you need to pass on would be in the form of an examples itself. If you define a scenario outline, it's mandatory for you to pass on the examples, and the variable names would be defined like this: name, value, and a status, and those can be used in a scenario with this particular syntax using this braces. Okay, using this particular braces you need to specify the variable name so that it can understand, okay, this is the variable that needs to be substituted. And if you see here, this is the header, and this is a one set of data, and this is a second set of data. So this entire scenario will run first with this data, and again this entire scenario will run with the second set of data. Okay, this is the way how this is gonna work. So consider that this is the precondition which is common for all the scenarios. So I can define a background and I can specify this background here so that before executing this particular scenario, this background will be executed. And again, before executing this scenario, this background would be executed. Okay, perfectly all right. Good enough. So this is all about a brief overview on a Cucumber and how exactly we are gonna use it. Moving further, we are gonna use this Cucumber keywords, guys. If you need any further information on a specific topic, kindly let me know so that I can help you out with the further elaborated details. Okay. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye bye.